Test. Test, 1, 2, 3, test. Test, 1, 2, 3, test, test. Test, 1, 2, 3, test. Test, 1, 2, 3.
Welcome, everybody. Another nice Saturday morning together. Just have a few announcements before we start into chanting meditation together. So Allison Thomas, whose house we live behind, she, for her birthday, is sponsoring an all-day meditation retreat, which I'll be holding space at, and that's on February 23rd. This is in honor of her birthday, and it'll be at Blossom Studio, which is in Northgate, February 23rd, and the theme of the day long will be Listening All Day, Receiving Meditation, a morning and afternoon with silence and some sound. There's going to be some gongs and sound bathing in the middle of the day, but everyone's welcome. There's no cost. So yeah, that's one big announcement. And Christina?
Hi, everybody. I'm Christina, one of the Sangha coordinators. I've posted about this on Discord and WhatsApp, but wanted to make an announcement here in case anybody didn't see that. We are looking for another WhatsApp admin. It's a volunteer position that has a relatively low commitment. You'd be joined by Janaki and Miles, rotating your responsibility every week. And the role just really requires moderating that channel, making sure everyone's adhering to guidelines, and then just screening people to make sure we don't have spam bots coming into the channel. So if that's something you're feeling called to do, especially if you haven't volunteered yet with Clear Mountain and are feeling like you want to, please come see me after the gathering and we can talk about it in more detail.
Thank you, Christina. And yeah, anyone who's not yet on those WhatsApp or Discord servers, you can join anytime. Also, no cost there, and there's more information about the day long there on both of those as well. So I think that's all of our announcements today. So we can jump into some chanting together. And this is a chant which we don't do that often. It's on page 57. So this is called the 10 Subjects for Frequent Recollection by One Who Has Gone Forth. And so this definitely applies to monastics, novices, monks, nuns. But I think there are a lot of really good principles in there that people can look out and reflect upon for themselves, and hopefully it will be meaningful for people. So we'll just do the English, and this goes on for 3 pages. So just the italics in English. And when it says bhikkhus, it literally means monks, but you can take it to mean just practitioner. And all of you, having woken up what some people might consider an early time on Saturday and come out here to St. Mark's, you're all definitely practitioners. So, bhikkhus, there are 10 Dhammas which should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. What are these 10? I am no longer living according to worldly aims and values. This should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. My very life is sustained through the gifts of others. This should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. I should strive to abandon my former habits. This should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. Does regret over my conduct arise in my mind? This should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. Could my spiritual companions find fault with my conduct? This should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. All that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. And this should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. I am the owner of my karma, heir to my karma, born of my karma, related to my karma, abide supported by my karma. Whatever karma I shall do, for good or for ill, of that I will be the heir. And this should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. The days and nights are relentlessly passing. How well am I spending my time? And this should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. Do I delight in solitude or not? And this should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. Has my practice borne fruit with freedom or insight, so that at the end of my life I need not feel ashamed when questioned by my spiritual companions? This should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. Bhikkhus, these are the 10 Dhammas to be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. Okay, so we can sit meditation together for about 20 minutes. And we'll just invite everybody as we settle down into a posture which is both upright and relaxed. Upright but not uptight. As we do this, we'll just invite people to reflect just for about a minute on what is it that we've come here to go forth from. What are we meditating to go forth from? The different habits of body, speech, and mind that we are here to see and hopefully let go. And you can be specific. And in this next minute, what are you going forth towards? What is onward leading for you? What is it in this present moment, in this 20 minutes of meditation, this morning of community? What is it right here and right now that we're going forth towards? And keeping these wholesome and life-giving intentions just very present. They can be in the background, but very readily accessible, knowing why we're here. And having used a thought for a bit, we can come back down and into the heart, into a more feeling space. So people are welcome to use whatever meditation object you're most comfortable with. It can be a mantra or different feelings in the body. And I'll just speak to one particular way that you can practice, if you would like to experiment, is allowing the mind just to rest in this heart space. So unhooking from thoughts, dropping down from the head, and just coming to rest in this upper chest area, where you can feel the heart beating. Or if you can't exactly feel the heart beating, we at least know that it's there, this warm center of the body. And flanked on either side by our lungs, life-giving lungs. This is a big space. It's bigger than your head. And we'll just invite people for the rest of this period to just rest in this heart space, this inner knowing in the upper chest. It might help to feel every breath that comes in, the expanding of the lungs and the chest wall, forward and to the sides and to the back. And even down as the diaphragm flexes and relaxes. Just see if you can stay right here with as much kindness and presence as you can. This isn't a thinking exercise, it's really a embodiment practice. If you find that you're thinking about tomorrow or yesterday, no big surprise, but you can just unhook. In the lungs, this spacious castle is here in the upper chest, and just coming back. And it doesn't have to be a place of constriction. You can actually stay in this heart space, this lung space, but not feel trapped or encaged. Just being still in the body. you find yourself thinking, just recognize we've got this whole space in this period of time to just come back to the simplicity of the heart space. This whole area. From the diaphragm to the neck. Big. It's like an inflatable castle. We can just be with the spaciousness here, the feelings of the lungs hugging the heart. And just let the mind settle here, to just rest. Just resting in this big space, right in the heart. The last few minutes. Hopefully we've been bringing a sense of care and kindness to the whole process of breathing and placing the mind. But in these last few minutes, just really foregrounding metta or loving kindness. So we're already, the mind is hopefully dwelling in the heart here, in this heart space. And just on the next in-breath, you can think, may I be well. And that is true. And we all do wish ourselves well. And the more we can connect with the parts of ourselves that care for ourselves, the better. Every in-breath, may I be well. And every out-breath, may all beings be well. And hopefully nobody felt too tight in this rib cage. But now is a time when you can just open up the doors. Just recognize that the mind isn't just trapped in this anywhere. We can just extend this wish, may all beings be well, to all beings, touching all those around us, everybody in the room, everyone at St. Mark's, in Capitol Hill, in Seattle, in Washington, may all beings be well. No limit. And you don't have to force this wish out. Just recognize there are no walls. in the heart's knowing. There don't have to be any gates up. May I be well, and may all beings be well.
Anyone who like to join us for the request for the Dhamma talk, please, the page 124 on the book. But before we do the request for Dhamma talks, no pressure, anyone can bow 3 times. Ready? Bow. Jaloka Tipati Sahampati Katan Chaliyana Tiwarang Ayajata Santi Tasatta Parachakachatika Tese tu Dhammang Anukam Pimang Pachang.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So, I'd actually love it if we could chant that same chant one more time. I'm going to abbreviate it slightly for anybody who's thinking like, come on, dude, we just chanted that. At monasteries, we do so much chanting. This is nothing. And it's on page 57. And this time, these are 10 subjects, and we won't do the part that says this should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. So basically just what's inside of the inner, those inner quote marks. We will start with the bhikkhus. Okay, let's see if we can do this together. Bhikkhus, there are 10 Dhammas which should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. What are these 10? I am no longer living according to worldly aims and values. My very life is sustained through the gifts of others. I should strive to abandon my former habit. Does regret over my conduct arise in my mind? Could my spiritual companions find fault with my conduct? All that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. I am the owner of my karma, heir to my karma, born of my karma, related to my karma, abide supported by my karma. Whatever karma I shall do, for good or for ill, of that I will be the heir. The days and nights are relentlessly passing. How well am I spending my time? Do I delight in solitude or not? Has my practice borne fruit with freedom or insight, so that at the end of my life I need not feel ashamed when questioned by my spiritual companions? Bhikkhus, these are the 10 Dhammas to be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. Okay, well, I hope everybody loved that. And if you didn't love the whole thing, I hope you loved at least one sentence, or at least one word. Or if you didn't love any of it, then thank you for not leaving just yet. No, when you come to a monastery in our tradition, we all use the same chanting books, and they use the same chanting book at Aloka Vihara. And we'll usually we're chanting from this chanting book every morning, every evening, and we pretty much have to memorize the chanting book. Just by default, you end up memorizing the chanting book within the first year, if not the first 6 months. And this one comes a little bit later because we don't chant it that often, and I can totally understand why. Every time, maybe not every time, but so much of the time when whoever was leading the chanting said, okay, turn to page 57, we're going to do the 10 subjects of frequent recollection, I would always think, oh, come on, this, I love it myself, and it's great for monastics. All of these, we need to be, as monastics whose very life depends on the support of others, we need to be reflecting like this. It's a duty. But in our monasteries, we also have lay people visiting who maybe it's their first little foray into Buddhism. Basically, they just came for the meditation, and then we kind of, we're not charging anything, so they feel compelled to chant, and then we make them, chant something like this, and it can oftentimes seem a little bit much. But yeah, I think it's useful to look at the Pali and to take all 10 points as a whole, because that's how the Buddha taught it. So this does come up in the earliest strata of the Buddha's scriptures, and as you can see with this word bhikkhus, he is talking to the monastic community, but it really does have broader implications. And nowadays, if someone's giving a talk or doing a presentation, there's oftentimes advice, okay, just talk about 3 things, or just do 5 things. That's all people these days can handle. It's just 3 things, okay? The Buddha gave 10. So I do think people's memories, by and large, were a lot better than they are these days when we've outsourced so much of our memory. But yeah, it is a set that the Buddha gave. And initially, so many of you will know that Ajahn Nisabo and I are both on our winter retreat. So we're 3 weeks into a 3-month time of stepping back and doing less outreach. We're answering emails less, and that's a real practice for Ajahn Nisabo. For me, I just love it. Ajahn Nisabo is an amazing emailer, but I delight in the solitude of not having to send emails. And as I was settling in this week, one thing that we're doing, some of you will know, is we're having 7 hours a day of online Zoom meditation. And you might ask yourself, what the heck is Zoom meditation? Well, Zoom meditation is just like a Zoom room or just like meditation, except you combine the two. So you come in, you open up, click the Zoom link, and you're there. And you can either have your camera on or have your camera off, and we'll have a group of 6 to 20 plus people sitting there quietly. And we have longer sessions. People are welcome to come for any period that you can. These days we're doing 3-hour session. We have a period from 4 to 7, a period from 10 to noon, and a period from 3:45 in the afternoon to 5:45. And there are people here, even I'm looking at some of them in particular, who come to many, if not all of those. And it's kind of a beautiful little community that we got going there. And we all sit in silence. It's like forced mute. Nobody can unmute, even if you wanted to, like scream or do whatever people do on Zoom usually. But yeah, forced mute. And then at the end of the session, unmute, ring a bell, and then people do one of these things, like greeting and thanking each other. And then there's this really sweet, super, smile and wave. And it is very reliable. One of the best parts of my days is just seeing other people delight in each other's company. So at the beginning of this week, I was really delighting in that. And I think I knew Ajahn Nisbo and we are taking turns doing these talks. I'll come in one week, he'll come in the next week. Sometimes we'll do doubles, but I think I knew that I would be coming in. So it was already very naturally this question, point number 9 in here, do I delight in solitude or not? That was very naturally just coming up as a really useful question. And pretty much that was the main question that I was posing to myself from time to time in between meditations or even in meditation. What does that mean? Kachinu kohang sunyagare abiramamiti. What does it mean? What is solitude? What does it mean to delight in solitude? And do I delight in solitude? Do I ever delight in solitude? Can I delight in solitude? Is that a desirable thing to delight in solitude when there's so much craziness going on in the world? Can I delight in solitude? Can I just sit down and my favorite non-Buddhist quote is from Pascal. And he said that all of humanity's problems stem from the inability to sit quietly in a room alone. And that's just a fascinating thing to think about. And so I was sitting with that most of the week, and I will definitely encourage people to look at that question. And then I think just yesterday was remembering an article which some people had referred us to in The Atlantic. It's called The Antisocial Century. The Antisocial Century. And it's making, I think, a really good point how a lot of people in society and different levels of society, different subcultures, are really becoming more and more isolated. One of the statistics of the many that are in that article is that most people are experiencing, say, a 5% decrease in the last 5 years or 10 years of human-to-human contact on a daily basis, 5% decrease in the amount of human contact that they have each day. And that wouldn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, but that 5% decrease in human contact was going hand in hand with a 5% decrease in satisfaction or life rated well-being. And for me, as a monk, for Ajahn Nisabo, we're monastics, we've been training in solitude, and do I delight in solitude or not? It's really a good question which has a very clear answer. Like, this is a skill, this is a metta skill which we need to learn. It's a skill which we need to learn as monastics and can teach. But it needs to be balanced. It really needs to be balanced. And I think a lot of people don't naturally delight in solitude. It's a lonely and isolating and isolated and depressing thing when we don't know how to delight in solitude, and you just sit quietly in a room alone. And you can't just force a switch. Just asking yourself the question, do I delight in solitude or not, doesn't mean, you might think, oh yeah, that would be a good skill to be able to have, because you do need it. It's impossible. We will be alone. We will be alone for shorter or longer intentional or unintentional aspects or parts of our life. And it's a useful skill to be able to have, but we have to train in it. It's something that you have to train in. And this list of 10 is really beautiful because you'll notice 5 of them are statements and 5 of them are questions. Some of them are all about solitude, and many of them are all about community. Could my spiritual companions find fault with my conduct? My very life is sustained through the gifts of others. I am no longer living according to worldly aims and values, but I'm still in the world. We're all still in the world, so felt that rather than isolating that one principle, which is a really good question to ask ourselves, because society won't ask you to ask that question of yourselves unless they're trying to sell you meditation mats. But all the rest, all the advertisements we see, all the celebrities we hear, everybody is just encouraging us to go out and to buy more and to spend more and just problematizing and, being alone. Being alone is, they say, just inherently toxic or inherently lonely. So it is a good thing to reflect on. Can I delight in solitude? Can I just be alone? But these other ones are very balancing for that. So just thought to go through each of these. And in preparation for this, I printed out 6 of these, and I laminated them. Everybody. And the first 6 people who would like one of these, this will make it much easier, because you can't take these chanting books home yet. The whole thing is available free online. But the first 6 people who raise your hand, nice. All right, one. Boom, boom, done. Sorry, everybody, too slow, didn't make it. I will give those 6 people one of these, and hopefully you can memorize this. In memorizing things really is a lost skill. But if you were outside of that 6, if you were number 7 or 8, please just come up afterwards, all those 6, and I'll give you one just after we have our questions and at the potluck time. And if you're number 7 or 8, or even anybody else, just let me know and I'll print out more and bring them next week or the following week for you. But it's a great thing, it's a great list to memorize, because they're all counterintuitive and really countercultural reflections which lead in a direction of independence, not dependence, lead in a direction of freedom rather than being entangled. So, sorry, 7 and 8, but we'll get you later. So what does this mean, to go forth? The Pali word is pabhajita, and it technically means one who has become a novice. The ceremony for novice ordination, both for bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, is pabhaja, literally the going forth. But I think hopefully all of you, without that much deep thinking, can see that all of us are here because we are moving away from something, whether that's bad habits that we want to give up, or dependencies that we have, addictions that we have. We do have these things that we want to go forth from, and hopefully we do have something that we're going forth towards, even if that going forth towards is in this exact moment, even if what we're going towards is right here, right now. And that's really important. That's incredibly important. The going forth doesn't have to be going forth towards anything super exalted, although that is what point number 10 is talking about. But yeah, really tapping into whatever it was before we started meditating, what it was that you looked in and said you wanted to go forth from, and what you want to go forth to, and really keep that in mind, and not just during this meditation, but really in any of your meditations. And this is a good skill to be able to start with a meditation, is why am I here? What am I coming from? What am I going towards? So these are reflections, paccavekkhana. And these aren't necessarily things to think about. Cogitation, ratiocination, this thought process, it is a very mental thing. And anybody here who thinks for a living, you feel it up in your head. Your forehead starts to just collapse in on itself, and you get a headache because you're just thinking so much. And this word, paccavekkhana, really points to what we're doing here. The root is ik, which means to look, and those two prefixes, pati, ava. Pati is to come back, and ava is to come down. So this is a looking where we come back, we're less vectored outwards, we're less leaning into our future, our planning, our obsessing. We're not bending forward into our fascinations, but we're coming back, pati, ava, and coming down into a heart space. So this is a looking and examining from a heart space. So that's hopefully what we were practicing when we were doing that meditation. The first one is, I am no longer living according to worldly aims and values. Vevaniyamhi aju pagatoti. So the literal translation is, I have come to a state of castelessness. I'm no longer in a varna. So at the time of the Buddha, very radical teacher. He admitted anyone into the order of monks and nuns who, from any caste whatsoever. And in America, we don't usually think in terms of caste, but we do, there are ways that we, literally varna or vana means coloring, the coloring. There are different ways that we take on our team's colors, whether that's red or blue or whatever color, I'm sorry, I don't know who's in the Super Bowl. It is happening tomorrow, yeah? Yeah. Whatever colors those are, can you come to a state of colorlessness in that regard? And yeah, I am no longer living according to worldly aims and values. And it's a nice translation because that's what this is pointing to. And I think all of us in here, that's not difficult to tap into as well. We're here, this is a rather countercultural place, meeting, gathering space. The cultural values of just consume. That's not what we're doing when we come together. Our different values, stated or unstated, implicit or explicit, that society has for us, imputes upon us and expects of us, that our families have of us, our employers have of us. We're trying, at least in our hearts, to move outside of that, or at least to have a space that's no longer living according to worldly aims and values. The second is, my very life is sustained through the gifts of others. Parapatibaddha me jivikati. Literally it means, baddha, my life is bound up. My life is bound up with others. And a really great time for you to remember to reflect on this is when you're eating. This is instantiated in the mealtime chants of many monasteries, is that you reflect, this offering or this food upon my table is the fruit of work and care. So many hands and so much labor and probably so much fuel and so many hands have come together to get this food that I'm eating, that I'm living off of, into my body. And just reflecting that I've come to a place of dependency, this interdependency, this interbeing. So my very life is sustained through the gifts of others, or my life is bound up with others. And that's really important to remember. And it's a very good counterbalance to the type of isolation which is depressing, the type of isolation which leads to that 5% decrease in your own well-being. When you just think, I've done my job, I've spent my 8 hours or whatever it is doing the work for the man or whoever it is, and this is my time, get out. just close the door, and just the collapse, the tuning into and zoning out that you do with your phones, your devices, your screens. From that same article, the antisocial century, something like majority of Americans spend 17 hours a week in front of their TVs, and something like, just the statistics are just, it's depressing just to hear the statistics. All the more if you're actually living inside of your black mirror. So recognizing that our lives are bound up with other people, that's really important. The next one is, I should strive to abandon my former habits. And hopefully, we can all see clearly what those are. Literally, for a monastic, the reflection is, my conduct or my behavior should be otherwise. There is a deportment for monastics, for monks and nuns, which is different. Like, we've got 70 rules. We got 227 main rules and just tons and tons of other rules. But 75 of them are all about just deportment. Table manners, we got 30 table manner rules. We got 30 rules just about how to be, in society, how to sit, how to stand, etc. So we're training in that, but what are the bad habits that each of us are trying to live out of and train away from? The fourth reflection is, does regret over my conduct, literally my sila. So sila means morality. Hopefully people know the 5 precepts. We take them every once a month on the first Saturday. That's, I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature, from taking that which is not given, from sexual misconduct, from false and harmful speech, from using intoxicants. And that's a really good base of harmlessness. You're giving a great gift of harmlessness to the whole world when you keep those precepts. And we do this as monastics. Every 2 weeks, we confess with our monastic brothers and sisters if we've broken any of these rules, if we've slipped up with our speech or whatever it is. And we do have this on our Discord server. People can find a confession buddy or just someone to talk about your precepts with. And I think many hundreds of people on our Discord server are doing that, have found someone to confess or talk about these different trainings, because they are trainings that we take on, and you can reflect on this again and again. The Buddha doesn't say how often, but how often would it be useful to look back at your day or at your morning or at your week or your past 2 weeks and say, oh, how was I with my speech? How was I with my actions, my kindness? So that's the fourth training. And the first question, before then we have 3 just statements. So ontological, the Buddha is stating, okay, these are reflections for people who've come into, a Dharma community, these reflections on how we exist in society. That's just how it is. And now we're getting to the questions which you ask yourself. And the next is, could my spiritual companions find fault with my conduct? And that's good. This points to friendship. It's not, we need to learn how to be alone, but we also need to learn how to be a good friend. And why? Because the reason we're not better at the things we want to be better in is often because we've got all these blind spots and we just don't see very clearly the ways that we're hurting our spouses and our friends and our coworkers. So having a good friend, and the words here are sabrahmachari or vinyu. Vinyu means wise. So our wise companions, sabrahmachari, those who are kind of walking this path with us, preferably people who are trying to train in these same things, maybe other people who are trying to train in the 5 precepts or the 8 precepts. So checking, could others find fault with my conduct? And then the next 2 are also part of the 5 subjects for frequent recollection, which is the very previous chant, which is on page 55. All that's mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. Just this truth of separation, that is a fact of life. It's a resultant from anicca, the truth of change. Everything is changing and things are unpredictable. The next reflection is also from that 5 subjects of frequent recollection. I am the owner of my kamma, or karma. What is karma? Karma is action. I am the owner of my intentional actions, heir to my actions, born of my actions, abide supported by my actions. Whatever I do for good or for ill, of that I will be the heir. We are the results of our past actions and intentions in so many ways, and maybe all the ways that are most consequential. So reflecting on that and taking that radical self-responsibility is really important. And then the last 3 are all questions again. So this next, the days and nights are relentlessly passing. How well am I spending my time? Literally, the days and nights are coming up and falling down. The sun is coming up, and then it goes down. And then it happens again and again. And especially you watch that on time lapse, that is fast. And you look back, life just goes really quickly, and it seems to go even more quickly the older you get. And the days and nights are relentlessly passing. We're still alive, so there's still things that we can do with that. And reflecting, what does that mean? What are the implications of that? If we took our mortality seriously, how well are we spending our time? It's a good question, because yeah, it's fun to have fun, but you got to know how. And if you can find fun and enjoyment, if you can learn, as the next reflection say, do I delight in solitude? If you can learn to take delight in solitude, if you can learn to feed off of these different aspects of the well-being cascade, if you can learn how to really enjoy being someone who wants to be generous, somebody who wants to be virtuous, someone who's trustworthy and harmless and trying to be wise and trying to have a still mind, or at least a mind that can become still. So this, do I delight in solitude or not? And you really do have to learn how to do that. And part of it really is just putting in the time. And we definitely invite all of you, hopefully, come, even if you can only come for 5 minutes to our Zoom meditations, then come to those. It's a great forcing function to have these accountability buddies. And you could come just 5 minutes, you could come 2 minutes before the end of the period, and then you would at least see the beautiful smiles and just the waves, and you would just get that much kind of good well-wishing in your day. Do I delight in solitude or not? And there's a lot of consequences if you ask yourself that question and then you try to sit down for 5 minutes and you realize, well, crap, no, I don't, I can't. And it's a really humbling and it's a call to action, namely the action of just sitting down or practicing meditation and being more with the uncomfortability of just being by yourself. And that last reflection is also really important. Has my practice borne fruit with freedom or insight, so that at the end of my life I need not feel ashamed when questioned by my spiritual companions? And the word shame there is, maybe people don't like it. For monastics, this is good for us. We do have a clear goal in our life. Our clear goal in the present moment is to fully participate in the present moment. And our goal for this life, or however long it takes, is to realize, the English is freedom or insight, but the Pali is uttari manusa dhamma, alamari jnana dasana viseso. So a truly noble knowledge and vision, which is uttari manusa, which is transcendent. So it's talking about, in Theravada Buddhism, we do have this belief that in stream entry, non-return, once return, arhatship, we do believe that it is possible for a human mind to train itself to fully transcend greed, anger, and delusion. That's a belief. It's a belief. And you have to come down on that. You're either operating from a perception, oh, that just seems impossible. And every psychologist says it's impossible. You just have to learn how to be with your greed, anger, and delusion. You can't really transcend it. Or you could test the hypothesis that the Buddha says that it is possible, that he himself did it, and that arhats through the ages, all the noble Sangha members, have also put an end to greed, anger, and delusion. And that doesn't mean we don't want to think pink or pretend like our emotions that are really there aren't there. But yeah, is it possible to transcend greed, anger, and delusion? And have I done that? Have I done that? And you don't want to do this in a way. This is each of these questions, each of these reflections has to be done skillfully. Each question, each reflection is a skill in itself, because you can do this. You can, there's a way you could just browbeat yourself with each of these, like, oh, I don't delight in solitude, therefore I'm worthless, and I just need to force myself into it. And with all of these, we want to stay within our zone of proximal development, that is our learning zone, where we're a little bit out of our comfort zone. Like if you're used to just sitting 5 minutes a day, if you were to try to sit for 3 hours, that's going to be a bit much. But if you're used to sitting 5 minutes a day, try for 10 minutes or try for 7 minutes. If you don't do that, then you don't know how much you could delight in solitude and what that really could mean. The Buddha talks about the bliss of seclusion. Meditators throughout the ages have talked about the rapture, the pleasure born of seclusion, the absolute just body-shaking, bone-cracking bliss that can come from meditation, from a still mind that doesn't have to go out, that can just sit here and be utterly content in a room by itself. So yeah, I have a lot of mudita, and that means I rejoice in those 6 people who get these laminated cards. And for anybody else who wants one, just let me know and I'll take your name down and we'll get them to you next week. But leave the talk there and hope everybody can figure out ways to bring these reflections into your lives.
หันธรรมยังธรรมคาถาสาธุการังทดามเสสาธุสาธุสาธุอนุโมทามิ
Okay, so we can take questions, or people wanted to share thoughts, and also people on Zoom, if you wanted to raise your little cartoon hand, then you could do that as well. Sid, please. Oh, yeah.
Ajahn, that was a very beautiful talk. I was asking a question for a person who's lazy like me, or maybe it might be useful for other people. What are the meditation end time every day? Thank you.
That's hilarious.
Morning and evening.
That's hilarious. The end time is 7 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, and noon, and 5:45 p.m. So feel free to come right at 6:58 if you want. So, yeah. Or 6:57. Push. Okay. Kurt. Oh, we got. What's that? Oh. Okay. Do you want to read it? Or maybe they can unmute? Ryan, could you unmute?
Oh, yep. Sounds good. What advice would you have for someone who can't keep their eyes closed during meditation?
Yeah, it's a great question. Keep your eyes open. Yeah, there's definitely a place for that, and realizing which one of those is more helpful when it's helpful. I would encourage everybody to learn how to meditate both with your eyes closed and with your eyes open. Both are really useful skills at different times. If you're falling asleep, then opening your eyes is a very easy way to just make sure you're not falling asleep. And would just like to apologize to all the Zoom people. I mean, 7 hours a day, especially for me, the noon period time is just like, that's my frumpiest. And so I open my eyes, and I'm sure there are times when I'm just looking like super sleepy and creepy on there just. So thank you all for your patience with that. But yeah, keep your eyes open, and if you can, the way they do it in Zen circles is oftentimes to look down maybe a meter or a meter and a half in front of you. For me, I find actually looking just straight ahead exactly at eye level or above is useful. And you can do the exact same thing. You can pay attention to every single breath with your eyes open or with your eyes closed. And if the mind is very bright and awake and alert, then you can experiment with eyes closed. Is that helpful, Ryan?
Yep, that is helpful. Thank you.
Great. Oh, please.
Hi, Sophia. I appreciated that you were unpacking that solitude is like within the context of connectedness. And so, yeah, I think sometimes when I read the English translations, it's through the, maybe that isolation-based lens. And so, it's not asking you to be comfortable, isolated, and disconnected. It's saying, how do you enjoy pulling back and creating kind of a cognitive space for yourself and your own being? Is that kind of the solitude that we're talking about here?
Perfect.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful. And then just the other phrase, all that is mine, beloved and pleasing will become otherwise. I know that's like the core of the Noble Truths, but that is not the one that I'm good with yet. So any thoughts there? Thank you.
Yeah, I think with all of those, my father had stage 4 metastatic stomach cancer, and I went and spent some period of time with him and was kind of touching him. Would this reflection on death or separation, these 5 subjects, be something that might actually inspire him? And it was definitely the wrong medicine. Like, it was a very depressing and not helpful for him to reflect on his own mortality at that point. So, okay, touch that and it's too much. But I'd say if you can see that it's the heart of the Four Noble Truths, that there is separation and there is dukkha, because that's really what it's pointing to, our own attachment to different things, our own entangledness with things. Touching into that as much as you can, and really maybe positively framing it like, all that's mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise. And there is a well-being that is unentangled, that can be unentangled. There's a well-being that doesn't have to be shaken by that. And really, hopefully, all of us have tasted that to some degree, and really remembering that all that I love, all that's mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise. And I'm really my best version when I'm not fixated and stuck and attached. And and thank you for situating that. The best place to practice seclusion is in community. Pretty much, it's like 1 in 200 people, like a lot of people do come up to Ajahn Nisabo and I and say that, they're really inspired by a monastic life or a renunciate life or some kind of meditation life. Like, what would we recommend? Should they go off and be a hermit? And extremely rarely do we say, just go off, sell all your stuff and then just go live in a shack. We're not, it is a metta skill with many sub-skills in it, how to delight in solitude. And you learn how to do it in community when you have someone like a wise teacher. I feel extremely grateful for Ajahn Pasano's example. He'll just call you out. If I'm getting weird based on my seclusion, if I'm overly secluded, or he'll just call me out and say, I think you need to stop being sick, you need to come out and paint a door or something. Thank you for highlighting that. Very good point. Is that Louis?
I've been rolling around the word enchantment, and especially like right now for my life with the election, I'm very cool with being disenchanted with some parts of the world, and that's coming naturally. But then I also just noticed in your talk, it seems that I'll just use the word enchanted with the sweetness of the presence of people meditating together. And so I had a little Kalyana Mitta pre-talk this morning, and we came down to the conclusion that it was attachment. That was the differentiator between the enchantment. You want enchantment with the wholesome versus Obviously, my disenchantment has a version to it, in my first example. So if you could talk about the word enchantment, disenchantment, and
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, no, thank you, Louis. It's a very Buddhist word. You find it in a lot of texts, and it's usually a translation of nibbida, which in Bhikkhu Bodhi's earlier translations was translated as disgust, which is, that's pretty harsh. That's pretty harsh. So disenchantment does have, like, I remember I was translating that book, The Well-Being Cascade, and some of my classmates are like, I want to be enchanted, like, don't use this word disenchantment. Like, I want to be enchanted with life and with, like, I think this person was thinking of, like, forest creatures, so, like, enchanted with forest spirits or something. But in the Buddhist sense, it is the attachment which is problematic. And the Buddhist path really is, even though the Four Noble Truths are structured around dukkha, unsatisfactoriness, suffering, it is also a path of getting better at happiness, getting better in having more and more stable, lasting, harmless, generous basis for happiness. So being able to delight in the bliss of blamelessness, which comes from virtue, the bliss of seeing that you're a reliably generous person, the bliss of seclusion, the delight of being able to be alone. And we do need to be both learning how to tap into that bliss and to not be enthralled by it, to not be attached to it. Because especially when you first start training in samadhi, and maybe even for quite a while as you're training in concentration, it's not reliable. It's not reliable. You can't predict when's going to be a good sit and when it isn't. So you have to both learn how to breathe in a way, as the Buddha says in the 16 steps of breath meditation, to breathe in. I will breathe in long, joyfully, or I will breathe in long, breathing in happiness. So training in joy and happiness, but you can't be attached to that because it'll flip in your next sit, maybe. Yeah.
So I've been trying to understand kama or karma in the context of emptiness and soullessness. And so if karma doesn't follow a who into the next life, what does it follow, or how does it follow?
Yeah, this is very important. The meaning of emptiness in Theravada Buddhism is empty of something, empty of a self. So searching when you sit down, taking that as a working hypothesis to look, okay, is this body myself? Are these thoughts myself? Are these feelings myself? So that's the emptiness. If I can't find a self that is reliable, that I can control. And what's not empty in a Theravada setting is the law of karma. So like there is this predictability of the law of karma that, as they say in Thai, tam di dai di, tam chua dai chua, when you do good, from a good intention, that will lead to wholesome good results. And when you act from bad intentions, that will lead to painful results. And things can get mixed, but there is that fixed law of karma in a Theravada, looking at things. But then it's also unpredictable. The Buddha says there are 4 things which you can't think the end to. You can't think or know the end to the world. You can't think or know the end of karma. You can't know the range of samadhi. You can't know the range of a Buddha. And that one, I can't know all of the implications of karma. So I think that's when it's good to be able to tap into that perception of emptiness. Like whatever way, this is another very useful phrase, whatever way you conceive it, the truth is ever other than that. Whatever way I conceive, the truth is ever other than that. And that's very helpful with karma, because it's not like tit for tat. Like I poke somebody in the eye, and then 2 days later I get poked in the eye. I might never get poked in the eye. But yeah, so relating to emptiness, I think I do find that these 2 different reflections, reflecting on the perception of emptiness, when that's helpful and in the sphere within which it's helpful. And then reflecting on the truth of karma. I'm the owner of my karma, heir to my karma, heir to my karma. I'm the owner of my tensions. Whatever I do for good or for ill, of that I'll be the heir. And at the same time, this truth of not self. There is emptiness there, and I can't have complete control. So, yeah, and the Heart Sutra is a lot more radical. And if reciting the Heart Sutra, as you and many other people do, I have, if that's helpful, if that helps you come back to this perception that is not leaning into the future, leaning back into the past, if it helps you bring to a place of stable equanimity in the present moment, because most things are empty, then staying with that gate, paragate, parasamgate. Yeah, staying with that gone, it's all gone. Yeah.
I'll say in the spirit of inclusion and community building, we'd love to hear from those of you who don't speak regularly too. So, how's that?
Thanks, nice, very true.
And I'm the holder of the mic and a professor, so I gotta say that. There we go. Thank you so much.
When you asked us to think about like what we're coming from when we come here, the first fully formed thought I had was, I'm coming from the psychosis brought upon by the conditions of a modern Western society. And that's honestly, like, I've been coming here for, over a year now, and I do feel that every Saturday I come here, that I get closer to a more peaceful state of mind. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Sadhu, that's really beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Soleil? Bring a mic.
Blessings, blessings, blessings. Soleil here. Two reflections I had from the talk earlier was that when it was mentioned about the heart or the lungs, hugging and massaging the heart, it reminded me of something someone told me once, that like the heart is like a hammock and it kind of swings like a tree. So that symbolism kind of made me think, oh, when I'm breathing, I'm helping my heart hammock sway. And then the second one was about the novice going forward, something about this PBS show called Nova, and also Nova kind of being like a Latin root word for sun. So the Nova and the ice made me think of like, oh, I'm a little sun, maybe in the chilly ice of the universe, the cold galaxy and stuff, but I'm going forward to develop and gather more light or get closer to the bigger sun. So, yeah.
Nice. That's really, thank you, both for the heart hammock and that reflection on Nova. Yeah, there is lots of connection with Pali and English, Latin, Greek as well. Like the word navaka in Pali means like we're newly in the monk's robes. That's what one's first 5 years as a monk are called the novitiate, or this navaka years. And that heart swing that reminded me, the name, what I wanted to call this coming into the heart and lung space is, this inflatable castle. Like you've got these little spires here, or the thoracic park. You're like in the thorax, and it's like Thoracic Park, and you're just like chilling there in the middle. Yeah. Maybe you have time for one question? One more? And if not, that's okay too. Kirk.
For why do I come here? I guess it's a good reset for the week, and just spending time with good people and the monks who are practicing well really inspires me. So yeah, thank you guys.
3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Yeah, beautiful. Wonderful. Yeah, so one thing we do at the end of these Saturdays, and so good to hear from everybody and wish we could hear more. So please, future weeks or on our Wednesday Zooms, please do always feel free to raise your hand and share with the group. It is a gift. So what we do at the end, after we've done all these different good things, meditating and chanting and reflecting on the words of Dhamma, is to share all that goodness, to transfer merit, as it's called. So we can chant the verses of sharing and aspiration. We'll actually read the blessing braid first, but you can get your chanting books out. It's on page 33. But yeah, maybe, do we have the blessing braid up? Yeah, please.
For Amber, bedbound with long COVID, from Carolyn. For Cynthia with brain cancer, from Carolyn. For Jean, been without a job for 18 months. Submitted from myself. From Charles, recovering from surgery. Submitted from the Ajahns. For people suffering in the wake of the Reagan crash airport on January 29th. For Carolyn, struggling with health, spread care for her and her family, from Jeremy and Ajahns. For Stephanie Franco, recently died of lung cancer at 32 years old, please spread metta for good rebirth, from Katie.
Thanks, Kabir. And if anyone would like to bring people into the space as well, Devin, please. Mestet and Kevin. Thank you, Devin. Kristen. Niece with PTSD. Yeah, Sid. John Ake's quick recovery. Sadhu.
My friend's husband who has very severe back pain, Charles.
Charles with back pain. Yeah, please. John. John has a liver transplant. Yeah, please. Uncle in the hospital with lung problems. Yeah, please. Rico is in treatment. Yeah, please. William with extreme PTSD and mental illness. Thank you. Okay, we can sit with all those names, all those people, and bring up any others who we didn't name, and just sit with that and see if you can, however it might work, any goodness that we've done this morning, just sharing that with them. And taking that into voice with chanting on page 33. And people on Zoom, you can find the chanting book link. Now let us chant the verses of sharing and aspiration. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, may my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life. May they soon attain the threefold bliss and realize the deathless,
through the goodness that arises from my practice, and through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until I realize Nibbana in every kind of birth. May I have an upright mind, with mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold, nor weaken my resolve. The Buddha is my excellent refuge. Unsurpassed is the protection of the Dhamma. The solitary Buddha is my noble guide. The Sangha is my supreme support. Through the supreme power of all these, may darkness and delusion be dispelled. Okay. If anybody is here for the first, second, or third time, if you'd be willing to just raise your hand and say your name and how you heard about Clear Mountain, that would be great. Just introduce yourself. Yeah, please. Oh. All right, Kelvin, welcome. Nice. Oh, Julie. Julie, welcome. All right. Wow, very cool. Cool, John. Welcome. Okay. Oh, yeah, please. Cool. Welcome, Garrett. All right. Well, maybe the most exciting time of the day for some people is the potluck. There's a lot of great food back there for people. And yeah, please share with one another. And if you're up for the challenge of seeing if one of the first couple people who you talk to is someone that you don't yet know, that's a good challenge. And also for those 6 people who were the first to raise their hand, please come up. I'd love to give you one of these laminated cards, and anyone who would like to, we can bow together. So no pressure.